Thank you, Gergely and Evelyn, for inviting me. Welcome to all the participants of this conference, wherever you are. I'm talking a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on wine tourism on the example of Schloss Vollrads. And first of all, I would like to introduce Schloss Vollrads and the agenda a little bit to you. So for those who are not located in Germany and who are not familiar to Schloss Vollrads, I would like to talk about our location and our history, about the range of our wine tourism options pre-COVID, about the impact COVID had on our wine tourism offers, and also on the pandemic adjustments we were forced to do in order to survive. At the end of the presentation, I would like to share with you the consequences and results and a resume. And for sure, I'm open for questions as well at the end. So let's talk a little bit about Schloss Vollrads. What is Schloss Vollrads all about? Schloss is the German word for chateau, and Vollrads is the name of a historic person who founded this place. It's a beautiful monument located in the middle of own vineyards, monopoly vineyards. The vineyard names carry the same name than the estate. So the vineyard name is Schloss Vollrads as well, a little bit French way of declaration. And Schloss Vollrads has also got an own forest, a natural preserve, which is the place where we chop our wood for our wooden cask. But it's also a touristic attraction because it's a natural preserve and a birds preserve. So many people, families come by Schloss Vollrads to walk through the vineyards and through the forest to experience nature. Schloss Vollrads is located in the Rheingau, very close to Geisenheim University. It's just a stone throw away. And the Rheingau is one of the 13 German wine growing areas, also centrally located in the Rhine River Valley, and it's just half an hour to Frankfurt Airport. So the location of the Rheingau and Schloss Vollrads as a part of the Rheingau is pretty much perfect because we benefit from all the cruise ships coming up and down the River Rhine. We benefit from all the Scandinavian people going through Germany from north to south. We benefit from all the people who go west-east, so all the Dutch people coming by quite closely. And Frankfurt Airport is the main and most busiest airport in Germany, which brings us all the international travelers. So the location is pretty good for a wine touristic wine estate. Our history and tradition is also acknowledged by listing Schloss Vollrads as a European heritage on the Le Hague Convention list, which is the European correspondent to the UNESCO World Heritage List. Schloss Vollrads is a multi-sided estate. It's not only a historic landmark, which is nicely located. The landmark, the monuments attract aesthetes and naturally, culturally interested people. Schloss Vollrads is also a wine estate, internationally renowned, which attracts wine connoisseurs and wine enthusiasts. And Schloss Vollrads is also a restaurant and an event location, which attracts foodies, party people, and people who are interested in events. So winery, event, restaurant, and monument altogether is quite an attractive mix. The tradition of Schloss Vollrads dates back pretty long. The foundations of the tower you may have seen already dates back to Roman times. The first document of vineyard ownership dates back to the year 850, where a grey house as a palace house has been built for the local bishop. And the vineyard around it is still cultivated by Schloss Vollrads today. On this slide, you see also the copy of the first wine invoice in the wine industry worldwide, which dates back to the year 1211. First ever invoice showing the sales of wine shows the Schloss Vollrads sales to a nearby monastery. And in the year 1716, more than 300 years ago, Schloss Vollrads invented a category of higher quality wines, and this one has been called cabinet because the wines have been stored in a separate cellar called the cabinet cellar, like a treasury or library room, and the wines from this cellar were traded for significantly higher prices than ordinary wines. So this is a remarkable history, which makes us, in a way, outstanding in terms of history. Our restaurant has also got a remarkable history. The first mentioning of the restaurant place at Schloss Vollrads dates back to the year 1493. Maybe you know 1492 as the year where Columbus obviously found America. Around the same time, Schloss Vollrads was already a wine bistro. So we poured wine to local people. How do we know? Because we still have the documents. You know, the Germans are bookkeepers. We keep our documents. I reckon Italians or Spanish wineries did the same around the same time, but they threw all their documents away in order to avoid tax complications, I guess. Schloss Vollrads kept all the documents, and that's the reason why we can show you on this slide that in 1493 already wine has been served to customers. The pity was that this customer mentioned in this document didn't pay his bill, and that's the reason why we kept that that invoice. But the history of the restaurant goes back a quite long time, and the tradition for events is also going back to the last century. Basically, in the old days, it was more private events done and arranged by the noble family, the Greifenklau family, who used to own Schloss Vollrads. There were fundraising events, but also accommodating of guests from other noble families, banquets, and so on. So the tradition for events is there as well. After this introduction, I would like to share with you the range of wine touristic options at Schloss Vollrads pre-COVID to offer a wide range of touristic options to our visitors. We developed lots of different events. Basically, you can say it should attract family or company events. So like wedding parties or family anniversaries, kind of company incentive events. The second group of events we've offered to tourists were wine events, wine tastings, tasting seminars, work in the vineyard, kind of all the details of work you can do in a winery we shared with people, planting grapes, cutting grapes, grape splitting, crop thinning, things like that. And of course, there are a lot of cultural events, such as landmark days for the historic monument, concerts. We have a bat colony in our forest, so we did bat nights, and so kind of different things. To give you an imagination and an idea how this worked, basically, I picked a few photo images to illustrate this to you. So we had high-end wine and dine dinners with rare wines in the historic manor house. We had guided tours and tastings in the cellars. We had family experience days to transport our history, our culture, the nature preserve arguments. We did lots of programs for family and kids. We developed a living history program with historic scene plays where we served treasury wines from previous decades and to historic dinners. But also we did some major events like participating on the Magic Bike Rally, which attracts about 3,500 Harley drivers to come to Schloss Vollrads on one Sunday. That's a roaring experience. We have concerts with up to 2,500 guests. We have vintage car rallies. We have Wine 4 Cents, which is a DJ party format to attract the younger generation. Of course, in the winter season, we need to fill the gap of the bad weather season with Christmas market, Glühwein events and things like that. So altogether, it's a wide range of offers we did pre-COVID times. How got all these formats impacted and hit by COVID? What happened from March 2020 onwards? And now we need to share some numbers and figures with you. The first message I would like to share with you concerns the wine estate and the effect and impact on wine sales. If we take the turnover in the year 2018 in our ex-cellar door sales, in our online shop, and in our tasting rooms wine by the glass sale, in the wine bistro sale, the turnover we did in 2018, we set this as 100. Then we can see that we have an increase in ex-cellar door sales from 18 to 19 of about 10%. And the ex-cellar door sales, of course, because people were not allowed to come and taste the wine, dropped down to 85% in 2020, the first COVID year. In 2021, our forecast is that we are coming back to normal. In our online wine shop, we started in 2018 with the base of 100. In 2019, we saw an increase in all online shops all around the world. You see an increase in wine sales from 100 to 140. But in 2020, when people were not allowed to come on premise to buy their wines, of course, the online sales in the online shop went up dramatically, up to 250%. And this continues in 2021. So in 2021, we have 3 times the turnover we had in 2018 just in our online shop, because people changed their buying habits. And the wine by the glass sales, so people can come to our place and buy a glass of wine and enjoy it, sitting outside in the garden. We saw an increase from 18 to 19, but a dramatic decrease in 2020 and the same in 2021, because even if people are allowed to come, and they're a little bit shy to consume on premise. We had a lot of restrictions for on-premise wine sales. So the tasting rooms were closed for weeks. We were not allowed to pour wines as tasting samples. That was a really difficult time because people are used to taste the wine before they buy it, and we were not allowed to pour the wine. So they need to buy just based on our recommendation without tasting samples. Wine sales by the glass were not allowed in public space. Consumption in public areas was forbidden. So this was for sure the reason why even after people were allowed to come back, the consumption of wine by the glass is still low. And the tourism was regulated, so no group business was allowed. No cruise ships came by the river. No tour buses came by, which you can find as a result in our by the glass sales, obviously. What happened to our restaurant sales? What was the impact on our restaurant business? And here are the same figures. They start in 2017. We have 3 categories: banquets, which is like family or company events; a la carte business, where you can come and join a table with your wife or a few friends. And then we have a self-catering area as well. So you see that we were in a good position in banquets and a la carte from 2017 to 2019. Our increases, but in 2020, almost all banquets have been cancelled. We dropped down to 18% of what we had in 2017. So we lost more than 100% of what we had in 2019. The a la carte business was a little bit better because people tended to go out and enjoy the restaurant offers, but in very small groups. So in 2019, we still see a slight increase. 2020, more people came in the time where we were allowed to open our restaurants, and only in the self-catering area where people were still shy to sit together in groups, and where we normally benefit from bigger parties coming by our self-catering area, we're still not back to normal. The red figures are the estimated number of guests and participants we had in this area. So the black figures are reflecting the turnover, and the red figures are reflecting the participants. What were the reasons for kind of decrease in restaurant? Are the same reasons we have as a decrease impact on our number of events. So the red underline tells you that from a totally booked 485 events in 2019, we dropped down to approximately 115 in 2020 and only 185 in 2021. So the number of events pre-COVID, 480, during COVID, 110, 115, in the second COVID year, 185. That itself shows you the very big and huge impact COVID had on the wine touristic events. And if we go a little bit further into details, you can see that wedding parties 2019, 27 wedding parties dropped down to 1, just as an example. But the event segment of our wine touristic offer was definitely hit the most by COVID-19. What kind of pandemic-driven adjustment were we forced to do for our wine touristic options? There's one thing which outcomes all other arguments: safety first. Safety and disinfection strategy was one of the key facts for us to communicate to our guests in wine touristic segments that they can rely on us, that they can trust us, and they are in safe hands if they come to visit Schloss Vollrads. It's a lot about how serious and how reliable you do this safety first policy. We also offered immediately smaller events with less participants, and try to attract less people per event, but do more events. We switched from indoor to outdoor formats because for the aeration and the fresh air influence, this is basically a good idea. But as you may know, our summer season only goes from May to, let's say, end of September, October. So this is only a concept for half of the year. But also, especially in wedding parties, most wedding parties are done in the summer season. So to give you a few examples in terms of how we did that, you see we have all these disinfection tables at the entrance of our restaurant, of our wine bar. We guide people, give them the right direction so they don't bump into each other. We make sure that they go the right way. And of course, we indicate to wear masks wherever it's possible and necessary. And we do a really good disinfection policy. We offered all these formats outdoor with less participants and wide spacings, as you may see here in our garden area, or down there where we have only few people per table. And all these wide-spaced outdoor events were one of the reactions we did. Wedding parties outdoors rather than indoor, as long as the sun is shining, nothing wrong with that. But people were happy to have the opportunity to do wedding parties Also, there was a big competition for the few dates which were still available. We figured out that people booked into our events more on a short-term notice. So we need to be cool and attractive. People reacted more spontaneously. They reacted very positively if we offered creative, authentic, very individual formats. And they were very open-minded in doing kind of jam wine session things on a short notice, all communicated over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So the previous ways to communicate by email, by printed folders did not work any longer. It all went towards the direction of social media and short-term invitations, short-term events. A few examples here for you as well. Outdoor, of course, easy for us if you have horse coaches. You cannot do horse coach vintage tastings indoor. But this was one of the very successful formats to offer groups also horse coaches, which is a little nice protection if there's a few drops of rain. But it's creative, it's new, it's unusual, and it's funny. We did nature days for families in our garden area, very important for people who only have a flat in a tall rise or in a high rise building and they have no gardens at home. They were kind of stuck in their own flat during COVID. So all the formats we offered where people could participate in outdoor events and the entire family could participate were like very, very attractive for these young families because it was a kind of a highlight in their COVID lockdown, after their COVID lockdown restrictions. Healthy activities is a new trend which is kind of quite successful, where events kind of contribute to body and soul or body and brain, and people would like to have educative and informative but funny events. And a few examples here as well. We did Riesling walks, even in the nighttime we did night walks, vineyard torch tours, wildlife, fauna and flora tours. This is what you can do outside. You learn about nature. You can taste the wine in the vineyard where the grapes for the wine have been cultivated. And you have a safety issue because you can have a wide spacing amongst the other participants. Sorry, that was another format is the participation in vineyard work. On this example, you see how customers of us spend a day with us picking grapes. So they pay us for picking grapes. That's quite a nice add-on. And we do this since about 20 years. That's not a new format, but during COVID restriction time, this gained a new momentum and gained new attractivity. So we got lots of people asking us to participate in vineyard work events. We also offered and did modern and technically state-of-the-art digital formats, digital wine tastings, wine and music combinations, wine and food combinations. And of course, you need the technical equipment for doing that. You can hire somebody doing it for you on a high cost level, or you can do it with your own equipment, which makes you more flexible and you can react more on time. So to bring all these effects together, we see that very modern events with a cool, authentic, individual style were very successful. Safe events were very successful, and healthy and informative events were quite successful. What are the consequences and the long-term results for us at Schloss Vollrads? So we feel a range of new values were implemented and will stay more important for future event offers. The price becomes less important as long as people are feeling safe, as long as people feel like that's a special offer, and as long as people find it attractive enough to join these events. Safety and seriousness for sure will stay on a long term. I think this is what people learned out of this pandemic restrictions, that safety will remain an issue. And this is quite interesting for us, this is what people told us, after leaving the event, they want to take back home a story to tell and to share with others. So the storytelling needs to be developed to become a more valuable component of wine touristic events. This is what we strongly feel. And also a few examples of how you or what you can do. Creative, funny individual. You see, you can use some actors to make guests and participants happy and say, I've never seen that in any other place. Less participants have the good feeling of, I participated in a safe and really nice event, but we need more stuff to make this gonna happen. So the staff guest relation turns out to increase more on the staff level. That means the price for events and the cost level for events goes up with the safety level going up. Yeah. So I think this is a message we need to communicate into the market, that events have a higher price in the future, but also on a high safety level and on a high storytelling, informative, healthy, funny, cool, whatever level. And I think what will remain for the future, all the wine touristic locations and all the wineries, they need a really better focus on in-house social media and marketing purposes, and we need to develop the skills for these instruments within our staff. We need to give them a really good technical equipment so they can use these digital formats for marketing properly, and we need to invest in these digital technologies. And of course, listening to all these preconditions, we need and focus on knowledgeable and multitasking staff. We need to train the staff and even our helpers better. We need the passion amongst our staff to be better than our competitors, and we need the flexibility. We need to open our hands for accepting the money our customers are willing to spend on the day and night times our customers pick. Normally, the wine tourism is most attractive on weekend days and let's say late afternoon or early night time. And this is normally not the regular working hours. So I think we need to talk about that as well, to find a system how to make the wine industry and the wine touristic industry financially more attractive to our staff. So it all comes back to knowledgeable staff, and I would like to share with you a few of our staff members in the vineyard, in the cellar, the kitchen team, but also the vineyard team selecting the grapes. Very important, but our entire team, of course, even the vineyard workers support and share our stuff if we need to arrange big events and conferences. Everybody needs to help, so a good team and a flexible team is definitely a precondition. The resume. Wine tourism activities got severely hit by COVID-19 without any doubt, in wine sales on premise, in restaurant sales, and especially on the event side. For the future staff qualification, becomes more and more essential. Fast and attractive marketing is a big topic, and we need to become better in this field. Communication, effective communication, the same, becomes also more and more important. Digital formats can support but not substitute other marketing activities. This is what we learned as well. And I think we need to make sure that we understand that a few of the COVID-19 results and impacts will stay longer. Some may stay forever. And the wine industry needs to become financially more attractive to attract the really good stuff people to contribute to the wine industry and wine touristic offers. Otherwise, we will lose these passionate people to the gastronomy, to the hotel or catering or entertainment industry, and the wine industry is in competition with all these other industries. So it all comes back to quality, sustainability, authenticity, and uniqueness. If you have got questions, I'm very open-minded to reply to your questions. But let me go through the last slide first, which I would like to finalize a little bit. COVID will stay longer. We don't have the crystal ball to look into the future, but for sure, COVID will have an impact at least on the next year's wine industry and wine touristic industry as well. We did some nice events to attract people digitally, staying at home. We did, you see the spacing we did with all the wine boxes to make sure the safety first. And then we did, people were sitting at home all the time, could not spend money outside because it was a lockdown. So we did some gymnastic and sports activities you can do with wine boxes or with big, large format bottles. To keep communication with our customers running. And maybe you see in the last video, this is a part of the larger video you find on YouTube. So you can even do powerlifting with 2 boxes of wine. And of course, you need to buy these 2 boxes of wine first. Yeah? Those who have stronger muscles can do it even with larger boxes. But this was kind of the funny fake finish of this video, and that was quite successful. People liked it, people came back, people bought the wine and said that we need to come back and participate, be part of your gym team next time. So please let me know about your questions.
Thank you very much, Rowald, for this informative presentation with hard facts. I really like the numbers. Finally, somebody came up with numbers. This is what we need to analyze
that's what I thought.
Yeah, that was right. So, do we have some questions here from the room? Because I know that we have. Yeah. Just a second. You get a microphone.
I was just interested, you mentioned that you had invested in the digital equipment and in training staff in order to enable sort of these high quality online events. Is this something that you will really continue to invest and create and innovate with as people do come back in bigger numbers on site?
Definitely yes, because what we found is that we originally did it to support our event and restaurant team by doing this, but now our wine importers from all around the world come back and say, "Oh, can you do little like 1-minute videos for us introducing this wine together with one of our national or regional dishes. Can you support us in doing this for us? And this got momentum, and definitely, yes, I can reply to your question. Yes, we will continue in educating staff, in investing into technical equipment, and in using the opportunities this new technology will offer to us in all 3 different ways: in wine sales, in on-premise restaurant sales, and promoting events.
And just a little follow-up, does that also involve customized tastings, whether it was for particular corporate groups or private groups of people? Is that something that you're also evolving?
Yes, that was a big request under the lockdown periods in the past 2 years. And we had lots of requests from our customers who they pre-selected the wines, send the wines out to the participants, and then on a special day we did these digital online tastings. I think as soon as real tastings will be possible again and traveling will be possible again, this will kind of balance better. But that's what I meant by saying digital formats can support marketing but not substitute. So people still like to interact, but as long as real interaction is still limited or not possible, the digital formats are quite a nice substitute.
As I saw, we have also one question from the chat, or do you want to? Yeah, okay, we are also here. One question from the room.
Okay, I have a microphone. Thank you very much for this nice presentation. I would like to know a bit more about this activity you mentioned you do already since many years. People come to your vineyards and help to pick up the grapes, and I was never really myself persuaded that this is something interesting. Maybe you could describe how you do it, and let's also for the wineries that don't have experience with that, how can you do this attractive, and how would a day look like for a person that comes there to help?
Okay. Yeah, we started it in the year 2000 or 2001, so it's basically 20 years ago, where Germany back then had about 4.5 million unemployed people. So we started it and we were looking for pickers. So I made advertising in newspapers that Schloss Vollrads, pickers wanted, and we got no reply, not a single reply, nothing, zero. So I was really angry about that because we were trying to help the unemployed people. And so about 2 weeks later, I said, okay, now we try it from a different angle. And we made announcements and advertising in the same newspaper again and said, wine picking event, participation fee, 50 Deutschmark back then. And you're allowed to participate on the wine picking. And we got 240 replies. So we had to split it on different days. And the program on one of these days runs like the following. We do a reception to register all people, to see if all are there, and also to see if nobody participates who did not pay. And then we give a glass of sparkling wine as a reception drink or a glass of summer wine, so to make people feel welcome and cozy. And then our vineyard manager explains in the vineyard how to pick grapes, because we are doing wine growing on the northern borderline of viticulture around the 50 northern latitude. So in many years we need to sort out grapes, to select grapes. Some are taken for the daily selection, others remain on the wine, or even the grapes you take, you have to sort out single berries or something like that. So we educate people how to match the goal and the target of the day, to pick only the grapes we need for that specific type of wine we want to make that day. And then they get introduced how to use the scissor, because they're very, very sharp. You can cut yourself very often. You need to have a first aid person on premise also, because normally a few people don't listen carefully and they cut their fingers. And then they go out to the vineyard to pick the grapes. But our permanent staff is always close by to check if they're doing the right thing. And then they do that for a couple of hours. We collect grapes, and then we offer like a sandwich and another glass of wine in the vineyard. In the meantime, our permanent staff carries the grapes to the press house. Then all the pickers go to the press house and see how the juice is pressed out of the grapes they picked just an hour before. They were allowed to taste the juice, not only the grapes in the vineyard, but the juice. And then our cellar master explains what happens next by showing a wine in fermentation, a wine at the end of the fermentation, an already sedimented wine. So people can taste the different stadiums, the different production levels, to get a better understanding of what's the way from grape to wine. And then they can come up with questions, and it's a very interactive program. And at the end of the day, the program closes with having a nice local lunch together, local dinner together, with sausages and ham and a stew and 3 different wines they can share from there, can talk to each other. And our vineyard manager and our cellar master are still available for further questions. So it's very informative. It's outdoor activity. You understand better. You take a story back home. You can share with your friends, with your neighbors. And when this wine picked on that day will be bottled in March next year, all the participants will be sent a bottle of their own picking. So to give them a nice memory, and again to talk about Schloss Vollrads, and also to come back for other events, of course, like a liquid invitation. No? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I could listen to you hours and hours how you explain the reasons and the way how you build up the strategies is really interesting. I think we have also one question from the chat.
We've got one question in the chat, and that is, how about cooperation? That's talking about cooperation between wineries in the wine region of Rheingau. Is it relevant at all in your case, and how has it been affected by the pandemic?
I think that's a very good question, by the way. There was an interaction and cooperation amongst wineries. We are foundation member of the VDP, the German Predicate Estate Association, and especially in our region, where we have lots of colleagues participating in the same VDP organization, we have lots of events where some wineries cooperate with others. And as an example, Schloss Vollrads, as the place where Cabinet, one level of German quality, has been invented in 1716, we very much like to cooperate with Schloss Johannesberg. It's our direct neighbor. And they invented the Spätlese in 1775. So 2 neighbor wineries, 2 monuments, 2 Schloss chateau places in walking distance. It's an ideal way to cooperate. So we did walks from one estate to the other in the winter season where daylight is limited. We did dinners in a nearby Guide Michelin restaurant, invited guests, and they can compare a Schloss Johannesburg wine and a Schloss Vollrads wine coming along with the same dish. And this was hard to continue during COVID. So because all the restrictions needs to be controlled in one estate, and cooperation makes it even more complicated. But I think the positive thing was that we also saw and felt that this cooperation is really good. So I think we are all eager to restart after COVID. And I think cooperation will come out with a new value. And I think this is what we learned also. It was hit, yes, but we understand the high value of cooperation even better.
Thank you very much. I think the last word, or last thoughts you mentioned, cooperation is also a very important, significant part of sustainable development in wine tourism. So it will play in the future, I think, a more significant role. Thank you very much.